Hey, what's up guys? This is DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing a Windwitch Invoked test hand video. So I'm really excited with this one because this was actually requested by Txne over on Patreon for their monthly deck profile and test hand request. So they just told me make a Windwitch deck or make something that revolves with Windwitches, and I was like, man, what can I do with that? And then the literal next day, Windwitches got support. So I'm really excited to do this one. It's probably going to get an update later on once the Blazing Vortex comes out way later. But for now, this is the way I think is the best, most optimal way outside of Speedroids to play Windwitches. And Txne, they usually really like me to make some weird, crazy builds for different decks that they request. And so I wanted to make it this way, where it plays like a bunch of different engines, where it really comes back to the Windwitch package, which is really cool. And if you guys want to check out the deck profile, it is down in the description below. If you guys want to check that out, I guarantee you it's probably one of the most insane decks you've ever seen outside of the huge Revolution request that came out a little while ago. But without further ado, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon so you can get awesome rewards like this one, your name in the description of every single video, or getting a signed card sent to the mail. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this one. So, like I said, this is a really interesting engine. I really did focus very heavily towards the Windwitch package, playing some really interesting tech cards that you guys are going to see. But this deck is actually a deck I would not hesitate to carry to like a regional event or carry to a locals. I would definitely carry this to a locals because it has so much versatility. Because it has Invoked, it has the Windwitch engine, it has the artifacts in it. It has so many different cool aspects to this deck. It's just absolutely insane. So let's go ahead and cut the deck really quick and do a quick pile shuffle, and then let's see what we can actually pull off, because it's a really interesting deck. I actually spent a lot of time on this one and played it quite a few times on Yugioh Pro, the Project Ignis that's come out recently. But this deck is really interesting the way that it plays, because there's so many different ways that you can do it. And out of like 10 duels, I don't even think I bricked once. And you watch, I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to brick in real life. But I didn't brick on Yugioh Pro any of the duels that I actually played. And it had a pretty decent win ratio too, which is what's really interesting about this, because a lot of people just don't expect it. So let's go ahead and do our first test hand and see what we can actually pull off. So we're going to go ahead and get the Glass Spell or the Ice Spell right off the bat, which is really good. Our copy of Fairy Tale Luna, a copy of Trap Trick. We've got a Infinite Impermanence, and we got an Invocation. So the Invocation is the only card that's actually relatively dead in our hand, but everything else is fine. So right off the bat, we're going to go ahead and we're going to special summon out our copy of Ice Spell, because Ice Spell has the really neat effect that if you control no monsters, then you can special summon it from your hand, and then you can special summon a Windwitch monster from your deck, but it cannot be tributed. And then you can special summon you cannot special summon monsters this turn you activate this effect, except level 5 or higher wind monsters. And if this card is normal or special summoned, then you can inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent. So I'm going to inflict the 500 points of damage, so they're going to go right down to 7,500. And then we're going to add from our deck to our hand, or special summon to our side of the field, the copy of Glass Spell. Because if you normal or special summon this card, you get to add a Windwitch monster from your deck to your hand, which is going to be adding a copy of Glass Spell, or Snowbell. So we're going to get that Snowbell from the deck, and we're going to be able to go into some really cool plays at this point. So you have a Crystal Wing on board, which is what's really cool, because you can then special summon out your copy of your Snowbell, and all you have to do is synchro these two together, and then you have two options that you can actually synchro summon. So you can either synchro summon into the Wind Pegasus at the Wind Pegasus, or you can go into a copy of the Winterbell, which is two really cool options. I usually prefer to go, if I'm going to synchro summon away the Winterbell, I'll just synchro summon away the Wind Pegasus instead, because it has a really cool graveyard effect that if this card, while this card's on the field or in the graveyard, you can banish this card and then target a card your opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck if a card you control is destroyed by battle or by an opponent's card effect. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to synchro summon into the copy of the Wind Pegasus, and then I'm going to synchro summon the Wind Pegasus and the Snowbell together and summon out our big boss monster, which is the copy of Crystal Wing. Now, we've only gone into wind monsters the entire time, but keep in mind that some of our cards actually lock us into some wind monsters, because this card has the ability that you cannot special summon anything but wind monsters for the rest of the turn. She makes it so you can special summon level 5 or higher wind monsters, except for level 5 or higher wind monsters for the rest of the turn. And she makes it so that you can just use special summon her as a material. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. You can still normal summon though, which is why we play the copy of Fairy Tale Luna. So you can actually normal summon out the Fairy Tale Luna, and the Fairy Tale Luna has the neat effect that she can have the ability that you can, when she's normal summon, add a spellcaster monster from your deck to your hand that's 1500 or 1850 attack, specifically 1850 attack, which is, guess what? We have a copy of a card in our deck that is actually not the Fairy Tale Luna and not a Fairy Tale monster, which is a copy of Wind Channeler, which is a really good card to add from deck to hand because you can use her if you draw into a wind monster like our Tempest, Dragon Ruler Storms. You can draw into another random wind monster in your deck or anything like that. Discard this and discard that and search any wind monster from your deck to your hand that has less than 1500 attack, which is really, really cool. I like that effect, to just be able to grab another card from your deck, because she has the ability that you can discard this card and one other wind monster to add a wind monster with 1500 or less defense, not attack, from your deck to your hand, which is a really neat effect. Now, the other really cool thing is you have the Fairy Tale Luna on your side of the field that has a really neat effect as well. If you guys don't know what this card does, I don't blame you. It's kind of obscure, but it's kind of really cool. I used to play this in my Dark Lords back in the day when they didn't have the Indulged Dark Lord and stuff like that, if you guys have been subscribed that long, which I hope you have. But what this card does is has a really cool effect that during your turn, during either player's turn, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and your opponent can send one monster from their deck or extra deck to the graveyard to negate this card's effect. Otherwise, you bounce this card back to your hand, and you bounce the opponent's monster back to their hand or extra deck as well, which is really cool because if they summon something like a one-of, like it's a one-of, you can target it with this, bounce it back, because they don't have another target to send from their extra deck. Like back when ABC Buster Dragon was on the field, it would when it was at 1, this would really like cripple ABC decks because they'd have to use its effect or something like that to be able to just deal with it. Or if they summon Anaconda and they only play one Anaconda, you can use this and bounce the Anaconda because they don't have another one usually. So then we're just going to be able to set 2 cards face down, which is the Infinite Impermanence. If we did go first, you just probably set it somewhere and then use the copy of Trap Trick as well, which is going to be really neat. So when we go into our opponent's turn, you have a negate here, you have a bounce here, and then you have the ability to drop the Trap Trick. So Trap Trick is really neat because you have 2 targets in the deck that you can actually grab. You have the Infinite Impermanence that you can grab because we play 3 Infinite Impermanence, or you can grab my card of choice, which is the Artifact Sanctum. Now to activate the copy of Trap Trick, you're going to banish a copy of your Artifact Sanctum from the deck. And once you banish that Artifact Sanctum from the deck, you're going to be able to use that Artifact Sanctum and set it, which is pretty cool. Because Trap Trick has the ability that you can banish a normal trap from your deck, and then you get to set a trap, but you can only activate 1 for the rest of the turn. So we're going to set that copy of Artifact Sanctum at the beginning of our opponent's turn, and then immediately, as soon as we get a time to respond, we're going to activate that copy of Artifact Sanctum to special summon from our deck a copy of Artifact Scythe. Now we've locked our opponent down from summoning from the extra deck. We have the copy of the Fairy Tale Luna to be able to bounce whatever they normal summon, and we have the copy of Crystal Wing to stop any hand trap or stop any monsters that they have on the field. And we have the Infinite Impermanence that we could have activated first if we wanted to really get off with another really cool effect. It just depends on what you want to do. Now when we go into our next turn, we're going to go ahead and draw into another copy of Trap Trick, which is totally fine that you can just set to get a copy of Infinite Impermanence out of the deck, and then you can just attack your opponent with the Luna, attack your opponent with the Crystal Wing, attack your opponent with the Scythe. If this did bounce back to your hand, you could normal summon it back out, and then once you normal summon it back out, you could search a copy of a Spellcaster type monster that has the less attack points, which could be a copy of the Fairy Tale Luna, or you could search another copy of the Channeler, which would get you another wind monster from your deck, which is what I would probably do. I'd probably just grab another copy of her, and then once you do grab another copy of the wind, you can actually discard a wind with a wind, which is pretty cool because you can discard this card and one other wind monster from your hand, and then you can add anything from your deck to your hand that's less than or 1500 defense, which is a copy of the Ranru, which then you could special summon the Ranru because we control a spellcaster type monster, and then you can attack your opponent with a field like this, or if you want to link summon a little bit, or XZ summon. We don't have any XZs really in the extra deck, but you have a lot of different options that you could go into for link monsters and stuff like that if you want to, or you can just attack your opponent for 15, 1850, 22, and 3000, which is probably going to be game right there. So that's your first test hand. It's really, like I said, this deck is extremely consistent, and it puts on a bunch of different negates against your opponent. And it's just an overall really cool deck. And oh, by the way, we forgot about this, that if they did destroy one of our monsters by battle or by card effect, you can just banish this and end up using its effect to target a monster your opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck. So you got another card right there to deal with something if they get rid of the Crystal Wing. Just don't forget that you have it, because that's really, really important. So let's hope this next time that we can actually draw into the Invoked side, because we've shown you guys the Windwitch side and the Artifact side and the Fairy Tale side of the deck. Let's see if we can get into the Invoked side, which is really cool because you have plenty of cards in the deck to get into it. It's just sometimes with this particular deck, you get into like one engine, but you don't get into all the engines at once, which is not that big of a deal, because if you draw later into a copy of Alistair, you have backup plays. And Alistair is usually better in the late game anyways with a deck like this, because you have those materials in the graveyard compared to at the beginning of the game, which is pretty neat. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with this next one. So we're going to go ahead and draw into a copy of Ash Blossom, Infinite Impermanence, Fairy Tale Luna, Call by the Grave, and another Fairy Tale Luna. Now this is not the most optimal hand, but it's by far not a brick. So if we were going second, I'm just going to show you guys we draw into the Ranru, which is not really that bad, but it's not terrible. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're just going to normal summon out the Fairy Tale Luna. I used to do this in Dark Lords all the time. It's fine. And we use its effect to search a copy of the Channeler, and then you can set a couple of cards face down and then pass. You can do something simple like this, because you have the Call by the Grave to stop something, you have the Infinite Impermanence to stop something, and you have the Ash to bait out your opponent to really stop another play, and you have something to stop a hand trap right here, that if they tried to stop the Luna, you could hit the hand trap. They'd be down to 4 cards in their hand. When they draw into their next turn, you can stop another one here, and then when they go again, you can stop another one here, stop their one of right here. So you have plenty of plays with this hand. Now if we go into the next turn, we draw into the copy of the Glass Spell. If this did get bounced back to our hand, you can just ditch this, and then go directly for the copy of your Ice Spell, special summon it, grab your copy of the second copy of your Glass Spell, and then search out of the deck your copy of Snowbell, and then you have plays going there too, because you have a lot of different plays that you can just keep going, because this deck has a lot of recovery, which is kind of cool. Now see, you kind of look like you were backed into a corner, but we haven't even normal summoned yet, so we can normal summon out that copy of Fairy Tale Luna now, which then can use its effect to search another copy of a Channeler from our deck to our hand, which at this point is not going to help us out the most, but it helps us deck thin a little bit. And now you can synchro summon these two together, summon out your copy of either the Winterbell or your copy of the Pegasus, and then synchro these together, which that is gone. And we can just go from there. I mean, you have a lot of different plays that you can go into, which is just really, really, really helpful to be able to go into stuff like Crystal Wing. And you still got plays going, because you have the Crystal Wing, you have the copy in your graveyard of the Wind Pegasus, which is really, really cool. And you have all those other cards. And this card magically came back to me. Thank you, Savannah, for being in the background. I really appreciate that. That card just shot off out of nowhere. That was really cool. See, that's the cool thing about doing these in one take, is you have moments like that a card will just shoot off into the distance, and it's like, well, there it went. So let's go ahead and see what we can do in the next test hand. But as you guys can see, the deck is super consistent. And that Fairy Tale Luna really did bounce something, didn't it? You know, that really did bounce a card. It bounced itself too, but I mean, you know, whatever. I mean, it worked. It worked, you know what I mean? So let's go ahead and see what we can do in this next test hand. So let's go ahead and shuffle this back up and see what we can do. So we're going to go ahead and let's give it one more good little shuffle right here and give it a good cut. So we're going to go ahead and cut, and let's see. So we're going to go ahead and draw into a copy of the Channeler, Artifact Sanctum, Invocation, Trap Trick, and a copy of the Ice Spell. So again, we're getting into our copy of Ice Spell. We have two really, really good Sanctums. We have a Sanctum here and we have a Sanctum here. And you also have the ability right here with the Trap Trick that you can grab something else. So you can again go Ice Spell. You can go into your copy of your, let's see, you can grab out a copy of your Glass Spell again. You can grab out your copy of Snowbell and then special summon, and then you can synchro away these two monsters again, and then go into your Wind Pegasus, synchro it away with your Snowbell and summon Crystal Wing, and then you've still got a couple of cards to back it up with the copy of your Sanctum to special summon out the copy of the Scythe later on that we're just going to go ahead and flip during our opponent's turn, and then summon out a copy of Scythe, and then you have plays going there. And you have the copy of Trap Trick as well that you could activate, and then banish from your deck a copy of Infinite Impermanence, and then set a copy of Infinite Impermanence as well, because you can still activate the card the same turn it's set with your copy of Trap Trick, which is pretty cool. To be able to just get those cards off. You can only activate one more trap for the rest of the turn after Trap Trick resolves, which is kind of neat about the card. And if we draw into our next turn, we're going to draw into a Fairy Tale Luna that we can normal summon, and then grab a copy of Win from the deck, and then discard the Win and the copy of the Win from our hand, special summon Ranru, and then be able to go into our next play, where we can just OTK our opponent again, because you have all these plays. You have the Infinite Impermanence set, and you can go into a link play if you want to, but you really don't need to at this particular moment. You still have all those different plays that you can still go off into. So let's go ahead and do another one. Let's go ahead and do one more test hand, and this time I'm actually, if I don't draw into Alistair or Magical Meltdown, we have 6 ways to get into our copy of the Invoked engine, but it doesn't come up all that often. And I will go ahead and tell you guys, we're not playing Dragoons in this deck, so don't worry. A lot of people have been commenting and been like, hey, DarkArmedDuelist, don't put Dragoons and everything, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, I don't have to. But I didn't in this one. I did not put Dragoons in this deck. It doesn't really need it. It can pull off plenty of plays without it. So let's go ahead and see what we can do in this next one. Again, if I don't draw into Meltdown or I don't draw into the Invoker, we're just going to go ahead and add it to our hand. So we got Meltdown. Okay, we're fine. So this is not terrible at all. So, wow, this is actually really good. So we can go ahead and use the Magical Meltdown and activate that card on our side of the field, which is going to grab a copy of Alistair from our deck to our hand. You can then use the copy of the Wind in our hand to be able to discard these 2 wind monsters from our hand to grab from your deck to your hand a copy of, where is it? There. You can grab your copy of Icebell, special summon her, special summon Snowbell, inflict that 500 points of damage to your opponent, grab your copy of the Snowbell as well, the copy of Glassbell off the Icebell, and then you grab Snowbell. There's a lot of bells going on, my god. So we're going to go ahead and synchro these together just to kind of protect us. Go ahead and summon out our Wind Pegasus and Snowbell go together, and summon out the Crystal Wing. Now the really cool thing that you will notice too is you only went 5 summons. This is your 5th summon, which is pretty cool as well. So now we can normal summon out our copy of Alistair. Once you summon out Alistair, he is going to let us search a copy of Invocation from our deck to our hand. And then now we can use the copy of Invocation with a card in our graveyard, which is like the Alistair that you're going to use. And then you can go into some more plays where you can use the Alistair, send it to the grave, and then banish a copy of like this and summon the Ragin from the graveyard or from the extra deck, which is really cool, where you have a Book of Moon and you have the copy of your Crystal Wing as well. So you have more plays going on because he's still a wind monster. It does lock you out of Makaba, which is not that big of a deal because you can still go into it later, but you have all these really cool plays. Then if you go next turn, you get the Ash, which you can discard, normal summon this, search another Fairy Tale Luna, and then you have this really cool board right here. So you have a lot of different plays in this deck, as you guys can tell, and it's really easy. Like, this deck is really easy and really fun to play around with, and just has so much different advantage and so much recovery as well with the Invoked engine and all the other engines that you're playing in this deck. I mean, you're playing 4 different engines. You're playing the Fairy Tale engine, you're playing Artifacts, you're playing your copies of the Wind Witches, and you're playing your Alistair engine or your copy of your Invoked as well. Like, you're playing 4 different engines in this deck, and it just works so well to be able to just make this one beautiful deck that it just marries so well, which is so cool. So that's it for this test hand, guys. I hope Txne really enjoyed this one. It's a really fun deck to play around with. I highly recommend that you guys give this deck a try because it is so easy to understand and it's so fun. Like, it's just an overall fun deck to play around with. It's not super all the time going to go into the Invoked part, but you're usually, like you saw, going to go into the Windwitch part all the time. I will try and do a updated Windwitch deck once we get Raging or Blazing Vortex with the Armed Dragon stuff, but the Armed Dragon stuff is totally going to take priority, but that's not going to be till January. So we got plenty of time for that, but for now, I believe this is probably the way to play Windwitch is with the Invoked Artifact Fairy Tale engine. I think it's just the way to really throw these cards out and get them out on the field as quickly as possible. But anyways, guys, definitely give Its Tone some love down in the comments down below, because we have this awesome deck because of them, and I'm really excited for this deck. And I'm really excited. I might actually try and do some live duels with this deck, because it's just a fun deck to play around with. And let me know if you guys want to see that down in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.